My people, I bring you one of the mightiest experiences in all the historical cinema. But if you quake to look upon massive spectacle, lost worlds effortlessly brought back to life, the glare and dust of the parade ground, the barbaric splendor of god emperors, pitiless warmongers drunk with conquest, the riotous interplay of earth colors at every turn, dead animals draped all over everything, of kinds you're not allowed to own, elephant skulls on poles, spooky sorcerers in the night, egos that make rap stars look like social workers, and seemingly limitless raw tit. Then go back to namby-pamby land now, because this is
Shaka fucking Zulu!
I promise to keep the background bit short, folks. For most people, the great warrior nation of the Zulus means the rather faceless menace in that superb 1964 epic Zulu. The true story of the tumultuous 2 days of 1879, when a tiny British force fought for dear life against seemingly hopeless odds at Rorke's Drift, winning the all-time record of 11 Victoria Crosses for one action. Once seen in childhood, Zulu is never forgotten. Far fewer people have seen the underrated 1979 epic Zulu Dawn, set just a few hours earlier in history than that last movie, about the great Zulu victory over a large British force at Isandlwana. I had the privilege of seeing both movies on the big screen. The Zulu War of 1879 was the canvas on which celebrated events were drawn large for all time. But the Zulus did not become a highly imperialistic and militarized power just by colliding with a white power. They had a rich history, replete with conquests and genocide, which brings us back to that colossus among men who forged their greatness, Shaka Zulu. Shaka was one of those real-life supermen who come along once in a century to remake and reshake their whole nation, to kick ass by the truckload, and to punch big ugly holes in all that airy-fairy, smug academic crap about history being made only by social currents, not by great individuals. Yeah, I'm sure you've heard it, even Blackadder commented on it.
Real change comes from huge socio-economic things that individuals have no effect on.
Yeah, right. Like there was ever going to be a state of Saudi Arabia without this titan of a man here willing it to be so. Or a Zulu empire without this titan.
Nothing will be as it was ever again.
You see, no one would ever have heard of the Zulu without Shaka's energy, drive, and vision. Look for a little black spot emerging soon near the right of the map. Yeah, now, that's where the Zulu were when Shaka was born, about 100 square miles, and they had about 1,500 people all up. But Shaka absorbed conquered tribes into the Zulu, formed a huge army as disciplined and regimented as any in Europe, and his insatiable lust for conquest devastated the zone ringed in red here. But as entire nations fled before his mighty spear, they in turn spread the Mfakanye, the great crushing, over an area the size of France and Spain put together, marked in orange on this map. This general maelstrom had a final death toll in the region of 2 million people.
Nothing will be as it was ever again.
But then the next Zulu king, Dingiswayo, played Hadrian to this Trajan and pulled back the empire to more defensible boundaries, to just what you see in black here, which would hold out for a half-century more, doomed to collide with the expanding white powers and damned nearly beat Britain. If that sounds unreal, surely no African nation could have won final victory against Britain back then. Then cop this. The very next year, 1880, Britain went to war with the Boer nations of Transvaal and the Orange Free State in support of Transvaal. And Britain lost every battle. The Boers won the war and their freedom for many years to come. So yes, African countries could do it, and the Zulu nearly won using mostly spears. I dearly wished that this miniseries would be 6 hours of immersion in the world of these remote African kingdoms. But instead, the Africans' story is only told briefly in flashback, now and then, while we wallow endlessly in the focus on several white men. No, I am not kidding you about that. Something like 3/4 of its 8.5-hour length is focused on the first British traders to go to Zululand, and the often amusing cross-cultural situations that arise, like the eternal youth hair oil. So while your heart cries out for this, way too often they just give you this.
But you!
But I urge you to persevere with it. My gods, you're getting something good. In fact, the movie starts with 7 minutes spent in a royal country retreat in England, where the Zulu king Dingiswayo treats with Queen Victoria.
His Highness Dingiswayo Kampande Zulu.
It serves to give poignancy to the whole Zulu saga, but the character narrating it, Henry Finn,
he wanted his kingdom back.
Note the same voice here,
Of the soul that are far harder to diagnose and almost impossible to cure.
should have died 22 years before this. My gods, what a balls up! Although this sequence does serve well to foreshadow the greatness we will see in Shaka.
One of the most formidable military empires ever created. The Empire of Shaka Zulu.
Yet then we've got to wade through a flashback within a flashback to more royal residences in the English countryside, where even the ever-sepulchral Christopher Lee, an actor who knew plenty about waging war in Africa, can't hide that this is not what the audience has signed on for. He meets King George IV, formerly known as the Prince Regent. This man was the most unpopular English ruler in 600 years, and his record in the cinema reflects this well. Here in The Madness of King George, for example, while he is still the Prince Regent to the mad King George III, his father, or in Blackadder even.
To show how unusually sensitive I am, the better. I've just had another brilliant thought.
Another one, Your Highness?
Christopher Lee plays Lord Henry Bathurst. Fun fact, the town in Australia that is the mecca of motor racing is named after this very historical character. Bathurst was colonial secretary, and here he is given some frankly embarrassing dialogue.
They do multiply, don't they? Like bunnies.
If that should happen, we would have to deal with a very large number of these bunnies under the leadership of a March hare by the name of Shaka.
Dialogue which even sinks to paying showbiz in-house tribute to his role in the perfect movie, The Wicker Man.
Little Rowan loved the March hares.
Of a March hare.
So, if you're wondering why we're getting all this inflicted on us, when we thought we would be getting something more like this, then the answer is that this movie is pulling a giant deceit. It falsely claims that these British traders who first visited Zululand were sent by the government.
I may know the very man that you need, Worthing. Lieutenant Francis George Farewell. A master of land and sea, and just eccentric enough to perhaps want to do it.
Trading will be merely a cover. My ultimate purpose will be to contact Shaka Zulu in order to secure an alliance with His Majesty King George.
This is totally false. They were a private trading venture only, and as they set out in a ship about 200 years out of fashion, by the way, incorrectly shown getting shipwrecked on the Natal coast, affording them their first meeting with Zulus. They see how magnificently dressed and organised the militaristic Zulus are, and as these men begin escorting them to see Shaka, they ain't seen nothing yet. And neither have we. At the 90-minute mark, we have seen about 4 minutes of Africans without British people in the picture. But maybe I go on a bit too much about how much I'd rather be seeing Africans because it's a personal whim. In reality, this is a lot of spectacle, and not just for the wildlife. They get to Bulawayo, Shaga's capital, and they are working for a great nation, so they refuse to cringe before the thousands of fighting men drawn up in front of them. They were actually ordered by Shaka to gallop around like this. It wasn't all their idea. Shaka also, not to be outdone, he assigns some of his fittest men to outrun the interlopers, and, well, how do you think that turns out? Have you ever seen men take on racehorses? Yeah. So they eventually pike out. Their hearts burst in their rib cages or something. You know how it would be. Just sucking in that dust would be bloody horrible. And the horsemen win out and don't rub in their moment of triumphalism. But as they blink and take it all in, they realise this is one magnificent, absolute monarch with power of life and death over highly obedient subjects.
Your colonial office has no idea what it's up against.
The balance has shifted, and the contest to see who's got the bigger dick is definitely going Shaga's way, and then he does something utterly boss, which is not actually historical. He mounts one of the horses, still not having said one word to his guests, and gallops it around like a boss. Now you may think, how the hell could he possibly know how to ride a horse? Actually he could, because he had been closely associated with King Dingiswayo of the Mtetwa, when that king had been the only one in the region actually to own a horse and a gun. He had seen a horse before, up close and personal. We get up close and personal for the first time with one of the many witch doctors who are so important to the Zulu way of life that they assumed the English were mentally retarded for having given up killing witches. This one's name was Nobela, and she is played by a man in this role. Yeah, it sure was a shock learning that detail, but in this movie, for some reason, she is called
Zwide, the grotesquely old and frail chief witch doctor of the realm. I suppose the best way to describe her was that she constituted the spiritual arm of his court.
And everyone has lived in dread of her throughout living memory, although Shaka will be her undoing. But it is through Nandi, the mother to whom Shaka is pathologically devoted, that we are able now, through the narrator, to introduce Zulu history in flashback. Thank gods for this, at last.
Who was to emerge as the most powerful force in a story which, as I began to piece it together, became increasingly difficult to believe.
Count me now officially happy. So, in the misty recesses of history, the Prince Senzan Nakona of the Zulu, a pathetic little nation of 1,500 peace-loving people, is exercising his royal prerogative to possess every leopard that is killed in the country. He spied a gorgeous maiden, Nandi, of the Elangeni clan, and desired to woo her immediately, and the attraction was mutual. Either that or she saw a stepping stone to influence. I mean, what fairy tale doesn't have marrying a prince in it?
Take them with you.
And the Playboy Prince puts on an extra special performance.
I've watched you from the bushes. Your eyes told me you love me.
What happened was, Senzangakona's courtship display worked, not to get a new wife, but rather to get some dry humping going.
I'm not for the taking.
You play games with my feelings. Let us at least
14 minutes 50. So, do I now tell you what Amhaya is? Graphic sex talk coming up. If you are easily offended by graphic sex, or you are a wussy who can't hack it, please skip to 16 minutes 50. Pass the next 50 seconds watching something from this list here, while I talk about the real Africa. You have been warned.
Do my eyes lie to you now?
no. They show only the truth.
What they did was spread the woman's lips open, rub the man's German helmet in the pink pit, and eventually he would blow his load on the outside of her here. It's called the fourchette, by the way. It was perfectly normal practice for unmarried Zulus. Shaka even ordered whole regiments to do it on occasion, with female regiments prepared specially for them.
Nandi! How was it?
Not this time. They got carried away, played hide the sausage for real, which resulted in this.
So Bonaba.
Hey, Nandi, we've been waiting for you. I've got good news. We have decided that no matter how many others he may marry in future, you will remain his principal wife.
So we get this Disney princess act where she storms out not getting to marry for love.
My apologies, Gandiana. She'll do as she's told.
But the truth is, they found out she was pregnant at 3 months, causing a major public scandal, and they made her the prince's third wife without any ceremony.
I'm sorry, Father.
So am I, Nandi.
So the lavish wedding of Prince Senzangakona goes ahead to some other woman, while Nandi is the embarrassing third wife in the shadows. Let us dwell a while on this scene, which showcases what a stunning achievement Shaka Zulu is. The attention to detail with regalia is in a class of its own for cinematic portrayals of Southern African peoples, like these chiefs resplendent in leopard skin accessories. A leopard is a sort of like a jaguar, only less impressive. The ubiquitous buffalo tails, the skins of the greater kudu, the beast with the biggest horns in the world. I love these skulls of the intimidating Cape buffalo. Just wow. Or this symbolic moment when man and wife lie down together under the skin of the animal that meant the world to these Bantu peoples, the cow. Cattle were the unit of measuring wealth. The Zulu have over 300 words for cattle. My culture has about 12. Nandi knows she will be little more than a concubine. Senzangakona is kind of boss, isn't he? Especially when he fights a bull like it's just some parlour game. His father doesn't approve of him taking on the bull, but he does anyway. In later years, Shaka would take on animals like a leopard and even an elephant. You know, these flimsy spears they had. Can you imagine hunting down an elephant with these things? Well, that's what they used. Here is that official first wife, by the way, and if you can't stand very well simulated cruelty to an animal, skip about 15 seconds now. You will have noticed also the riot of earth colours at every turn in this movie, and as any decorator can tell you, interplay of earth colours is gorgeous. Having cited Nandi, he now says something which to showcase his great sensitivity.
Nandi! Bring me beer!
We love women. It's our civic duty to bang the booty.
Get it yourself. Get it yourself.
The movie goes on fictionalising the relationship between Senzangakona and Nandi for quite some time, whereas the truth is that they had a major falling out. Her pregnancy to him scandalised everyone, and after some months they had a promising reconciliation. But soon she had to leave Zulu territory for her own Elangeni clan's village. Yet it is to be expected that the movie makers choose one or another of the conflicting accounts given by the early authors. What we do know is that their sexual dalliance had been a grave breach of taboo, and that she had survived despite it being a simple matter to have her killed had he wished her to be so. So it's fair to say he must have loved her. And he did initially spurn her over the pregnancy, sending her back to that Elangeni village and putting about the story that the swollen belly was just the work of an internal parasite, a sort of beetle called an ishage.
It is either the work of another man or the Ishaka, the disease of the beetle.
The time comes for Nandi to give birth, in the dread predicament of a single mother, an occasion heavy with magic, portent, and a sea change in power politics, for the Zulu king is dead. Long live the king. Senzangakona becomes king. One of the few legitimate things he has done in his life, in fact. As Senzangakona slips seamlessly into the throne legitimately his, the bastard son is being born who will haunt his fitful reign. And she names him Shaka after that fictitious cop-out about the parasite, a living mockery of the father's deficient honour. But Nandi's ambitiousness drives her to trek to the Zulu village to confront the boy's father. Sinking into drinking, he is persuaded to reconcile with her and his son Shaka. They come singing a song recognisable to fans of the movie Zulu.
Taunting us. You couldn't be more wrong. They're saluting you.
Senzangakona manfully comes out to confront his responsibilities, negotiate over bride price, and reconciles with his estranged lover. The music score swells and becomes even more soaked in destiny than usual. We now jump to 1796, and Nandi watches in disgust as Senzangakona takes yet another wife and fast-tracks her past Nandi. Shaka is now a 9-year-old. Senzangakona treats Nandi with ill-advised contempt at the wedding festivities, and, more foolish still, he instills resentment in young Shaka, who we will learn has an elephant's memory for insults. Again, I ask you to take a moment to gasp in awe at the sheer achievement that is this ambitious movie, with its regalia. A fortune must have been spent on all the regalia they're wearing. Just look at these excellent props crammed into this scene here, which I have chosen at random. But this African Uther Pendragon is in a state of decline. And he blatantly mistreats Nandi in front of everyone, and, far worse, in front of young Shaka.
The mighty leopard with the bastard son.
If you hurt my mother again, I'll kill you.
I doubt that this is historical. You could not survive threatening a king before his whole nation, no matter that you be family. Kings certainly executed family members for treason. But I'll show you this passage because it captures brilliantly the nation's reliance on magical personages.
I smell a child!
They extract blood from Shaka, put it through controlled laboratory double-blind placebo-proof testing, and analyze the results. And peer-reviewed process, of course. And destiny and warning are on everyone's lips.
Firstborn of the king, giving birth to a mighty nation of blood-stained spears.
Shaka.
So, in the slightly fictionalized account of things of this movie, she escapes with her children and goes back to the Alangani village. The only man who has shown her kindness assists her in escaping. Senzangakona, enraged at this betrayal, kills him for it. Thus begins Shaka's and Nandi's appalling history of wandering forsaken in the wilderness, looking for support, and learning who their friends are and who they surprisingly are not. Indeed, even being a royal of this clan does not bring her prestige here. The king welcomes her with an ominous warning.
Nandi, Senzangakona did not ask for your return. He remembers no one by the name of Nandi, daughter of Pepe.
If you stay, you must fend for yourself and be prepared to be treated with a certain amount of hostility.
He ain't just whistling Dixie. The bullying we see them endure is accurate and harrowing.
Life was not easy for Nandi. Frequently they were subject to insults and abuse.
Who has no man to do him nice work? Here's a man for you.
I'm the son of the king, and my mother is a queen. Remember that. Go. Get away from here. Go.
Keep in mind she is a royal of this village, and the brutal contempt they endured had a dire effect on Shaka's psyche for life. Remember how I said that Shaka had an elephant's memory for insults? We will return to that thought later. Shaka does not take their persecution lying down. He is a fighter to the bone marrow, but they learn there can be no justice for them. The bullying reaches sickening levels, which I have carefully edited to spare you, but the bond forming between mother and son is like no other.
Never again, will he leave an enemy behind.
At moments like this, the movie gives us a booster shot of destiny and witchcraft. But it's blame the victim in this village, and she is expelled into the wilderness. The pitiless countryside between tribes strains the endurance even of the Spartan Zulu people, and we see the grandmother breathe her last. This shared ordeal increases the legendary bond between Shaka and Nandi. And Shaka's legendary feet of leather were forged here. Correctly, she throws herself on the mercy of a former flame, Gandayama, of the Kwabe clan, who does take her in. And at last, young Shaka gets to know the milk of human kindness.
You're welcome here. Under his protection, Shaka would grow and develop into a strong young warrior.
The next episode begins with a more responsible and mature Senzangakona, showcasing that linchpin of the economy and wealth that the Bantu peoples knew, cattle. His ever-conniving sister now drops a bombshell.
Shaka has a brother now. Gendiana is the father.
And she confuses the viewer royally with this.
When you helped him escape, it was because I...
What the hell? Remember how we saw him murder the guy for helping them escape?
I helped you to escape.
She is stating the historical truth, but this movie is now contradicting its own falsified narrative.
Win him back, brother. Win him back from that woman before it's too late. Before we regret having saved his life.
I helped you to escape.
Truth is best, folks. Now back to the Kwabe tribe who are harboring Nandi and Shaka. Just look at this accurate dwelling construction. This movie is such a gem. Again, this is what I wanted, breathing life back into long-forgotten African nations. Zulu ambassadors have requested Shaka's return.
My prince, I bring you a message from your father, King Senzangakona. He is grieved. He asked for his son's return to the home of his forefathers, so that he can publicly, and in front of his own people, be proclaimed heir to the throne of the House of Zulu.
Shaka is hot and cold on this dangerous deal since it excludes his mother, and goes home, "Alright, it's untrue, but I want you to see this excellent portrayal of a Zulu witch doctor."
Ushaka.
That was his name being pronounced correctly. Once more.
Ushaka. Today, you boys become men of Amazulu.
Shaka Zulu, heir to the Zulu throne.
But this, I will take by force. By force. If my mother is not a royal wife, then I know no man by the name of Senzangakona Gajama.
Enough! At sundown, the warriors will follow. If they catch you, they will kill you.
I will be king!
The warriors do pursue Shaka, which is the cue for a fictitious quote from narrator Henry Finn.
For that night, as he fled the warriors of his father, legend records that she caused him to stumble upon an ambush in the forest. And although he didn't realize it, his action on this fateful night would in later years lead directly to the fulfillment of the Isangom's prophecy.
No, this did not happen. We see Shaka finding a wounded stranger and nursing him back to health. Spoiler time. It is Dingiswayo, heir to the throne of the Mtetwa kingdom. This second greatest ruler in Bantu history had many legendary adventures after his botched attempt to assassinate his king, even returning with the only horse and gun anyone had ever seen. That's pretty boss. But this was not one of those adventures. This is fiction.
And I pray that when we are no longer wanderers, we will meet again. Go now, before the Zulus find you.
Earlier I showed you this same actor playing the last Zulu king, Dingiswayo, in Zulu Dawn.
The two fugitives, Dingiswayo and Shaka, would indeed meet again, but it would be under very different circumstances.
Shaka returns to his refuge, and we are introduced to one hell of a good casting choice, Henry Healy, as the mature Shaka. I must show you this fictionalized session in Senzangakona's court for one reason.
And now, he has...
The Zulu habit of taking snuff. There he goes. I did this once, didn't affect me much, but given that Zulu cannabis makes one aggressive of all things, then their snuff probably puts hairs on your chest too. Their decision is to send warriors after Shaka to kill him. Yeah, just like we saw them do years ago. Hey, come on. Why? Yeah, that's what happens once you start fictionalizing. Oh, what a tangled web we weave for ourselves. Yeah, you know the phrase. Why do I say this actor is a great choice to play Shaka? Well, besides his commanding presence and ever-present sense of menace, he has a body as well put together as what the early white witnesses describe. Sure, we aspire to have a six-pack. I've got a photo to prove I've got one. I've got to find it. But this guy's got a 9-pack. And at some moments it actually divides into a 10-pack. Hey, count them yourself if you doubt me. This is just nuts. And he's got runner's hips, as the ancient Greeks understood it. Yeah, like you see there. Wow.
What's with this freak of fucking nature? I mean...
I've never seen an actor with a more commanding presence than this. Yet, you'd never believe where they got him from. How about soccer player? Yes, soccer. There's no way in heaven or on earth this man could use a Gillette product. You just know he would be Nivea and chic all the way. Hey, South Africans, you should be mightily proud of coming up with a soccer player capable of playing Shaka, and even making the role all his own. No one else could ever presume to usurp Henry's throne after this.
Escucha, do you acknowledge me as your king? Then you're a fool.
You know, I also have killed a lion.
How many shots did you need?
I use my hands.
Oh.
And when 10 years later he played a Maasai warrior, he had lost none of that unsettling, unknowable sense of menace. Returning now to our story, the Zulu king has fictitiously sent warriors to go and hunt down his son. Shaka spots his pursuers and bolts for it, and they shadow him. This didn't happen, but I want to stop and say something here.
It won't hurt to slow him down, to make our job easier.
Yeah, they're going to slow him down by just wounding him with a spear. Now, can you think what could go horribly wrong with this when you're trying to take him alive by your king's order? Yes, if he had moved at all, he would have gotten it in the organs. Probably the next movie I will review is a Mexican movie, Return to Aztlan. The makers of that complained of Mel Gibson, they said, stealing their ideas for his Apocalypto. Have you noticed how closely this resembles nearly half of the movie of Apocalypto? A frenetic chase of one man leading a bunch of determined pursuers through the jungle, across country. Yeah, maybe this is where the idea came from. No such thing happens in Return to Aztlan, by the way. The Zulu pursuers catch up with him, when he is absolutely exhausted and unconscious in the water, but fate intervenes. They've overreached themselves.
He needs help or he'll die.
Yes, he will, but not until he's been tried for treason. Now, pick him up!
Leave that man alone! I said let him go! You are in Mtetwa territory now.
Shaka has reached a foreign country, and it is no ordinary country. It is a highly militarized imperialistic power, the Mtetwa paramountcy, the greatest power in southern Africa. Bringing a world like this back to life is just what us history fanatics love and live for. But please don't have Dingiswayo the king. You saw his name there. He will not be king in real life. He would not be king for some years yet. His father ruled at this point and he was still a fugitive. Remember how Shaka fictitiously saved his life when they were both fugitives?
We will meet again.
Well, now Shaka's good Samaritan deed pays dividends, for Dingiswayo rules in stately inaccuracy in his kraal. Again, my heartfelt thanks for bringing this world back to life. Stuff like this is why this mini-series is a priceless cultural artifact. Africa, so often thought of as being darkest Africa and savage. No, history was being made there, just like in, say, Europe. This was conquerors, kingdoms, enlightened despots like this Dingiswayo who would come to rule 30 clans and who would try not to exterminate them in victory. Most people will never see this world except in this movie. Don't you just love the way Shaka looks scary when he's smiling? Did you see that throne? This man is well and truly enjoying his prerogative to own all the leopards captured in the kingdom. A sequence follows that is an absolute delight. Shaka's military service as a rank-and-file soldier in the Mtetwa army, in the Izzy-Clay regiment. The army is as organised and regimented as most of the armies in Europe. A life of hardship and privation has prepared him well for military life. They can't teach him anything. Soon he will be teaching them how wrong they've got it, and a military revolution is about to begin in this little world. We are introduced to the three. There's Mgabozi, who will become his lifelong round table of trusted, devoted loyalists.
Which place is mine?
Shaka can breathe easy at last, and he has a practical launch pad for his Olympian destiny. So, Shaka feels soul-deep comforted by army life and the prospect of proving himself in war. But warfare in the Bantu world is as dopey as hell. It looks like they're annoyed that no one has invented rolled-up newspapers yet, and they kill time flinging spears that couldn't pierce wet Kleenex. They even have actual cheer girl squads.
That's it? That's war? Yes. This is ridiculous. You couldn't hit an elephant from this distance.
Realizing what a total goat rodeo it is, he gives up on it and goes to complain to what passes for a general.
Too far apart?
Yes, General. By the time our spears reach the enemy, they have no thrust left.
And what do you suggest we do about that?
Get in closer. Maybe even stab the enemy.
Our traditional distance is 50 paces.
I know, sir, but I don't think it's effective.
Not effective? Wars have been fought like this for as long as anyone can remember. And you come along and say it's not effective?
Yes, General.
Little does the Mtetwa kingdom know that it is now pregnant with the mighty Zulu empire of the future. Here is a great note on which to end part 1 of my review of this stunning movie. Please join me in part 2 to see Shaka gain the whole world, yet lose his own soul.